Becoming a spacefaring civilization is one of those things that makes you excited about the future.
There are many ambitious experiments planned for the future. We will map the positions of millions of galaxies, and we will better understand our place in the universe. But we must also continue to go into space for the future of humanity.
And so, here we are saying, let's search for life in the universe. Intelligent life like us. Well, who are we to say that we're intelligent?
Initiating content. Five Strangest Mysteries of the Universe. Number 5. Aliens may have sent microorganisms to Earth. Dr. Milton Wainwright, an astrobiologist at the University of Sheffield and the University of Buckingham, claims to have found a tiny metal sphere that was oozing a gooey substance in samples gathered by a balloon in the Earth's stratosphere. The scientist says that the ball, which is about the width of a human hair, could be an example of directed panspermia, where life was deliberately sent to Earth by some unknown extraterrestrial civilization. He argues that the strange material coming from the titanium ball is biological and could in fact be a colony of tiny microorganisms. However, he has conceded it is virtually impossible to prove that the tiny sphere was sent by aliens from outer space. Dr. Wainwright said the sphere made a tiny impact crater on the sampler that was attached to the balloon as it collected dust and particles in the atmosphere. This proves beyond doubt that the particle was traveling at speed from space when it was sampled. Dr. Wainwright and his team discovered the sphere when examining samples of dust and particulate matter collected by a balloon sent around 16 miles into the atmosphere. Using X-ray analysis to examine the sphere, he concluded that it was made from titanium and traces of vanadium, while the material appearing to come out of the side was biological. He claims that it could have been carried to Earth on a comet or even sent by an unknown civilization. Number 4. Huge mystery blob was found under the moon's far side. Researchers have discovered something massive lurking underneath the far side of the moon, a mysterious blob with the mass akin to a pile of metal 5 times the size of the big island of Hawaii. The mass is located about 180 miles under the surface of the 1,240-mile-long South Pole Aitken Basin on the far side of the Moon, the largest known preserved crater in the Solar System. The oval-shaped crater itself is roughly 2,000 kilometers wide and several miles deep. The crater, which is believed to have been created about 4 billion years ago, is on the far side of the Moon. Despite its gigantic size, we cannot see it from Earth. The metals were discovered using data from NASA's Gravity Recovery and Interior Laboratory and the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. The dense mass is weighing the basin floor downward by more than half a mile. One possible explanation is that the asteroid that formed this crater is still embedded in the Moon's mantle, rather than sinking into its core after an impact some 4 billion years ago. Another explanation could be that the mass contains the remnants of the Moon's magma ocean, with the oxides concentrating there as it solidified when it cooled billions of years ago. We may not have to wait too long to unlock some of the mysteries of the lunar rear end, as NASA hopes to send astronauts there by 2024. Do you think this strange chunk of metal may be something else entirely? Let us know in the comments below. Number 3. Space debris or an alien satellite. There are around 3,000 human-made satellites in working order around the Earth. However, if the debris of old and damaged satellites are taken into account, the number increases dramatically. Ever since the Soviet Union launched the very first artificial satellite into orbit in 1957, various countries around the world have sought to compete, and satellites today are used for communication, navigation and exploration. Satellites are often visible passing overhead as the sunlight reflects back towards the Earth. One of them is impossible to miss, the largest satellite currently in orbit, the International Space Station, at a huge 100 meters across. However, these satellites are relatively unexciting in comparison to the mystery surrounding one very old dark satellite. In 1998, NASA took a photo showing an object of unknown origin that they claim is space debris. Some people believe the photo shows an alien satellite. The theory has emerged over a number of years and connects a few different pieces of bizarre data that the existence of an alien satellite would explain. While some argue the Black Knight has been in orbit for some 5 decades already, others say it is less time than that, and there are those who argue it was there 13,000 years ago. Its purpose and origin have remained well hidden, although there are claims it has already beamed signals to the Earth. The scientific and academic community dismiss all such talk. So how to explain the buzz surrounding the Black Knight? The root of the story begins with Nikola Tesla, who supposedly had heard sounds from space back in 1899. He deemed the sounds were possibly from intelligent life not on Earth, perhaps inhabitants of Mars. Decades later, in 1968, astronomers confirmed that he indeed heard radio signals, but they came via other natural objects in space. Tesla never claimed he heard signals coming from a satellite orbiting the Earth, but there are those who still believe he was listening to transmissions from an orbiting satellite, one that was none other than the Black Knight. In 1960, during the Cold War, Time magazine further claimed the U.S. Navy was aware of a satellite that had an unusual orbit. Initially, the magazine claimed it was a Soviet spy, but later it stated concern that a U.S. satellite broke out of orbit. Over the years, reports of the Black Knight satellite have accumulated, but according to many, they are the result of unverified stories, overzealous reporters, and over-interpreted photographs. As NASA astronaut Jerry Ross says, the object and all the speculations about it are simply the results of a mistake. A possible explanation to the mystery can be found in December 1998 when a space shuttle mission was conducted at the International Space Station. During the mission, which involved spacewalks, Colonel Ross and Dr. James Newman were attempting to install thermal blankets to make adjustments that would reduce heat loss and save energy at the ISS. As the blankets were fastened to Colonel Ross's spacesuit, one of them was lost. Once he had realized it was gone, it was already far away from the astronauts and they were unable to retrieve it. In an interview given in 2014, Colonel Ross has also stated that, "Conspiracy theories are fun for those working on them, but a waste of valuable brain power, in the context of all the surrounding Black Knight theories." Will these statements put an end to the intrigue of the Black Knight? Probably not. Number 2. Has the Kepler Space Telescope discovered an alien megastructure? A Dyson sphere is a hypothetical megastructure that completely encompasses a star and captures a large percentage of its power output. The concept is a thought experiment that attempts to explain how a spacefaring civilization would meet its energy requirements once those requirements exceed what can be generated from the home planet's resources alone. Only a tiny fraction of a star's energy emissions reach the surface of any orbiting planet. Building structures encircling a star would enable a civilization to harvest far more energy. On the 14th of October 2015, Planet Hunters citizen scientists discovered unusual light fluctuations of the star KIC 8462852, captured by the Kepler Space Telescope. The star was nicknamed Tabby's star, after Tabitha S. Boyajian, the initial study's lead author. The phenomenon raised speculation that a Dyson sphere may have been discovered. Wanting to understand the strange light pattern, Boyajian put several hypotheses to the test. The first general assumption was an exoplanet transiting its massive star, but the dips in light lasted between 5 and 80 days and were radically spaced apart, thus ruling out any kind of an orbit for one celestial object. A dust cloud was proposed, but the star showed no signs of being young, so a dust cloud was highly improbable. Lastly, a comet shower was hypothesized. However, as Boyajian pointed out, this was also highly improbable, as it would take tens of thousands of comets to reproduce what they were observing. So after all the natural explanations turned up weak, her team decided to send off their research to SETI, search for extraterrestrial life, to rule out alien structures. After reviewing the research, the SETI Institute was so intrigued that they decided to study the star themselves and pointed their Allen telescope array at the star with hopes of catching a telltale signal that might reveal a technological civilization. The SETI Institute mentioned that what caught their interest was that the timing of the present dip in light suggested that whatever this material was, it was situated at just the right distance from the star to be in the habitable zone, where life like ours could possibly develop. The search for answers to KIC 8462852 is still ongoing. Number 1. A giant hole in the universe. When looking up at the sky at night, it's easy to get the impression that the stars go on forever in fairly uniform fashion. We know, of course, that this isn't the case. Stars coalesce into galaxies, and galaxies join together to form clusters. And as for the vast, empty regions of intergalactic space, they don't go on for very long. The next galaxy is just around the corner. Except that is, for one particular area of space known as the Boötes Void, a massive expanse of empty space unlike any other observed in the universe. Discovered by astronomer Robert Kirshner and his team back in 1981, the Boötes Void, sometimes called the Great Void, is a huge, spherical region of space that contains very few galaxies. It's approximately 700 million light-years from Earth and located near the constellation Boötes, which is how it got its name. The supervoid measures 250 million light-years in diameter, representing approximately 0.27% of the diameter of the observable universe. Soon after its discovery, astronomers began to notice just how incredibly sparse the area really was. At first, they were only able to find 8 galaxies across the expanse, but further observations revealed a total of 60 galaxies. Now, while that might still seem like a lot, it would be like stumbling upon 60-mile-long objects across a region larger than the continental United States. The scale of the void is such that, if the Milky Way had been in the center of the Boötes Void, we wouldn't have known there were other galaxies until the 1960s. Just for comparison, our own Milky Way has approximately 24 neighbors in a region of space just 3 million light-years across. Looking at the volume of the Boötes Void, it should contain about 10,000 galaxies when considering that the average distance between galaxies elsewhere in the universe is a few million light-years. Scientists are obviously curious to know how such an anomalous region of space could come to exist. Computer models suggest that smaller voids, which are much more common, are caused by galaxies drawing closer to one another on account of gravitational attraction. This causes neighboring regions to empty out, and because the process is self-reinforcing, it tends to snowball. But this doesn't explain why the Boötes Void exists, mainly because there hasn't been enough time since the universe began for mere gravitational forces to clear out a space of that size. The need for an explanation has given rise to a new theory, one which suggests that supervoids are caused by the intermingling of smaller ones. Scientists have noticed that galaxies inside of voids take the curious shape of a tubular structure. The Great Void may be the result of smaller voids coming together, much like how soap bubbles coalesce to form a single large one. As for the tube of galaxies, that's likely the remnant of the boundary between the smaller voids. Those galaxies are now stranded inside the supervoid. There could also be a more radical explanation, and one that has likely not been considered in the scientific literature. The Boötes Void could be the result of an expanding Kardashev 3-scale civilization. As the colonization bubble expands outward from its home system, the civilization dims each star, and subsequently each galaxy, it encounters by blanketing it in a Dyson shell. This might also explain why the void has such a nice, spherical shape. Given that the void is about 700 million light-years from Earth, and that intelligent life could have emerged in the universe about 4 billion years ago, this ancient civilization may have had enough time to perform this astonishing feat of cosmological engineering. Now, this is pure speculation, but it's worth throwing it out there as a possibility, given the strangeness of the phenomenon. Yet another exciting possibility is that the cold spot was caused by a collision between our universe and another bubble universe. This idea of the multiverse, in which our universe exists in its own bubble, simultaneously as other parallel universes exist within their own, only exists in the realm of theory for now. If further, more detailed analysis of cosmic microwave background data proves this to be the case, then the cold spot might be taken as the first evidence for the multiverse, and billions of other universes may exist like our own. In other words, right now we still don't know how the cold spot got there for sure, but learning more about it and the cosmic microwave background in general could throw the lid open on a whole lot of amazing science, and we can't wait to find out. That was all the information we have available on the topic. We hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe for more interesting content. Thank you for choosing Artificial Archives, and we hope you have a wonderful day.